Hi folks, and welcome to the Meaningful Money Podcast. This is season 17, episode 1. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you put your finances in order. My name is Pete Matthew, and I'm going to share with you everything you need to know and everything you need to do to secure your financial future. I'm here to help you make sense of money. Here we are, once again, welcome to a brand new season here on Meaningful Money, coming to you from my living room, still working from home, obviously. Hope that you're bearing up and staying safe in it all. Always feels exciting to me, new season, hope it does to you as well. I'm really looking forward to getting into what is a pretty meaty season, following on from the previous one and looking into really the whole point of it all, retirement. Financial independence, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to sort of intro things today, and after that, look at the recent review that's been left, announce what we're going to be talking about next session, and I'll do a little bit about what's coming up in the season ahead as well. But as ever, before any of that, remember this podcast continues to be brought to you with the help of my friends at 7 Investment Management. They've been helping me out here on Meaningful Money for ages, so definitely check out what they're up to. They're at 7im.co.uk. That's the number 7im.co.uk. And before we dive into this week's show, I don't normally like to put too much stuff up front, but it's really important. Don't forget, Meaningful Academy Phase 2, which we're calling Build Wealth, that is now live, and it's the phase that deals comprehensively with building an investment portfolio, planning which tax wrappers to use, and of course it provides access to the best financial planning tool in the entire world for consumers, an app called Voyant Go. And there's currently a launch discount of £125 off the full price, and that lasts until midnight this Friday. So if this podcast is coming out on Wednesday the 13th of May, you got 2 days basically, midnight this Friday the 15th, and the price will never be this low again after that time. So you don't have to worry about coupon codes or anything like that to remember. Just head over to meaningfulacademy.com. Everything you need to know is there. Okay, the past 4 seasons, stretching right back to January 2019, I've been going deep on various successive life stages. So starting with millennials in season 13, then the new accumulators in season 14. Season 15, we talked about the long middle in a season we called Planning with Purpose. And then in the last season, which we finished a few weeks ago, the home straight. We dealt with essentially the last few years before retirement, the run in towards the finish line. And now here we are in season 17, and we've got to now step over the threshold and look at the unique challenges and opportunities faced by folks in retirement. And we've got a lot to cover, as you'll see. So as ever though, remember, notes, links, everything you need to know about today's show, they're at the show notes, which is the only link you need to remember. What's that link? I hear you shout. meaningfulmoney.tv/RP1. RP stands for retirement planning. That's essentially the no-nonsense name of this season. So meaningfulmoney.tv/RP1. Here's everything you need to know first. It's a bit weird. I got to kind of look down more than I normally do because I'm not on my normal setup, so I'm sure you don't mind. So the point of it all, really, for most of us, achieving some measure of financial independence is what we're all working towards, right? Whether you call it retirement, FI, financial independence, financial freedom. Most of us have got a vision of one day being able to live life fully on our own terms. And for most of us, a large part of that is not having to work or run a business to provide for our financial needs. This is really the reason we've been saving and investing, paying down debt, clearing mortgages, piling money into pensions and ISAs. It's the reason we haven't spent every penny that's come our way. It's the reason why we've sacrificed the present day to some extent in favor of one day. And now we're faced with that one day. We've made it. Everything we've worked towards is now right in front of us, welcoming us in. For some of us, the realization that we've made it and can finally retire will come as a shock. I've lost count of the number of clients I've worked with where they still thought they had to sort of aggressively pursue wealth building. And I was able really to gently tell them that, look, you've got enough. You can retire now if you want. I even had one client couple. They were planning to work another year or two after we'd done the financial planning exercise. That was their sort of plan A, if you like. And then one day, not long after we'd done the planning, the chap of the couple had a really terrible morning at work full of hassles and annoyances with his bosses and his co-workers. And at lunchtime, he rang his wife to complain, saying, "Oh, I've just had enough, terrible morning, I'm thinking about quitting." Of course, they knew by then that they could do so safely. And at that point, his wife said to him, "Do you know what? I've had a terrible morning too, and I have just quit." So, it was a brilliantly sort of liberating moment for them. So, we were able to bring their plans forward a couple of years. For others of us, we've been intentionally working towards this end for some time, and getting there just feels like breaking the finishing tape on a marathon. We've seen it coming, we've pressed forward towards the prize, pacing ourselves perfectly along the way. Of course, retirement isn't an end point, it's just a transition, and really it's the biggest transition of them all, the most profound transition, financial transition anyway, that any of us will ever face. Most people present to a financial advisor like me at a point of financial transition. Maybe they've inherited some money, sold a business, maybe they've got a child on the way and they want to look at this life insurance program perhaps. Usually there's a financial trigger of some kind. Very few people just sort of wake up and think that they fancy a trip to their friendly local financial advisor. Something happens that triggers it. And when it comes to retirement, man alive, what a transition it is. And we need not to underestimate it, but we need to see it for what it is, which is essentially a complete rethink of how we live, how we spend money. We're transitioning from accumulating wealth to spending it, or decumulating, which is my favorite made-up word in financial planning. It's much harder to affect this change than most people think, because it requires a complete mindset shift. It's an extreme one, really. And so in this season, I want to help you with that shift, and of course, as ever, with the practicalities of what retiring actually means from a financial point of view. Third thing you need to know is that retirement is exciting, or it should be. All this talk of the significance of retirement shouldn't sort of weigh it down with responsibility. Really ought not to lose sight of the fact that retirement is meant to be the longest holiday of our lives, something to look forward to. And even if we're still working, as long as working is what we want to do, then, it's still a holiday, living life on our own terms. Personally, I can never see me doing nothing constructive. I tend to be just sort of wired to look for ways to make or earn money, and I can't ever see that not being the case. So for me, probably retirement won't be a holiday in the true sense of the word. But I certainly don't want to always be working at the pace I am now. I want to do lots of things that I can't right now because of the commitments that I have, which are mostly work-related, obviously. So I can't wait to live life truly on my own terms, and I'm working hard towards it while also enjoying the journey. And I'm guessing that the excitement of getting there yourself is a primary driver for you. Fourthly, just a word about FIRE. Regular listeners will know that I've got a lot of time for the FIRE community and the whole principles of it. That's really those interested in the concept of financial independence, retire early. That's what FIRE stands for. Now, in this season, I'm not really going to be addressing the retire early part of that concept. For most of us, retiring early just isn't an option. We'll get there when we get there, and that's fine. And for me, I fall firmly into that camp. I'm in no particular hurry to achieve financial independence because I'm just enjoying the journey too much. It's obviously a generalization, but achieving early retirement takes significant effort and sacrifice. And if that's your thing, then more power to you. For our purposes in this season, though, I'll be talking about FI, financial independence, and using that term interchangeably with retirement, but I'll be skipping the retire early part altogether. So, retirement is a big deal. It's a massive transition, but it's a joy. It's something that we should be looking forward to, and when we get there, we should celebrate. Whenever I am working with clients and we sort of say to them, look, you've cracked it, you've achieved financial independence, I always say, look, I hope you crack a bottle of something nice tonight because you deserve it. So, I wanted to sort of start this season off really in a positive light to get you excited about what's possible and what's coming. So what is coming in season 17? Well, we've laid a lot of the groundwork in the most recent season, the home straight. So I want to try not to overlap too much with that if I can help it, but inevitably there will be some overlap. Instead, I want to build on the last season and take it further, and then cover some topics that are unique to those that have actually stepped over the threshold into retirement itself. The season's going to be 12 weeks long, including this week, and it'll take us to the end of July. Now, next week, I want to talk about the transition into retirement from a psychological and practical financial point of view. I want to talk about seeking advice as well from a professional, because even though I spend my life helping people to be their own financial advisor here on Meaningful Money, while being a financial advisor in my own right in my day job, I maintain that the point of transition into retirement is the one time you might want to consider seeking professional advice. So I'll give you a checklist of things to ask a prospective advisor and some triggers that might suggest that you should consider seeking advice for yourself. In episode 3, I'll be looking at some financial housekeeping that retirees should bear in mind. You want to get to the point where managing your finances in retirement is as simple as possible so that you can get on with enjoying your retirement. And there are some steps you can take to simplify and refine the things that you need to stay on top of. In episode 4, we'll go deep into investing in retirement. We already touched on that in some detail in episode 8 of season 16. I want to add to that, give you some behavioral steps to think about too. Investing correctly in retirement and staying the course for the long term is probably the key skill you need to acquire for a successful retirement, financially speaking. Then I want to cover risk in retirement in episode 5. There are some risks which are unique to retirees, which we're going to need to address. As ever, forewarned is forearmed, and pretty much any risk can be mitigated if they're planned for ahead of time. Episode 6 will be titled Avoiding Costly Mistakes. Even though retirees can look back on a lifetime of wealth building, hopefully with some satisfaction at a job well done, it really isn't time to rest on one's laurels. I've seen the same mistakes happening time and time and again in retirement. I want to help you avoid those in episode 6. Episode 7 will be about settling in for the long haul. Eventually, life in retirement settles into a rhythm. Most folks get to a point where they have everything they need. They've taken the holidays that they really wanted to take, and they kind of find a level of balance in their daily routine. And that's as it should be, presents some challenges and some opportunities. Indeed, things tend to progress like that for many years for those of us in relationships until one partner dies. And in episode 8, I want to deal with the financial impact of losing your life partner, offer some practical suggestions for how to be prepared for that in advance, because I've just seen countless times in my career, I've seen widows and widowers trying to deal with things that they were completely unprepared for at the worst time emotionally. And then equally, I've seen the opposite, where things were left neatly ordered and the surviving spouse was able to pick up pretty much where the deceased partner has left off. So that's episode 8. In episode 9, we're going to be talking about estate planning, how to think it through ahead of time. Obviously, we'll cover wills, powers of attorney, and trusts, plus the thought processes and some potential landmines that you might have to sidestep in order to see your wishes carried out. I'll be taking that further then in episode 10, talking about passing the baton. Baton? That's a bit of wood that you fix things to other bits of wood with, isn't it? Anyway, passing the baton with multi-generational planning. Obviously, every family is different, so you'll need to clarify your wishes before you can codify them in a will or a trust. I'll also be speaking to the subject of having conversations with your beneficiaries ahead of time. Not always easy conversations to have. In episode 11 then, I want to talk about the thorny subject of long-term care. Every single retiree I've worked with has the prospect of long-term care very much in mind as they proceed through retirement. It can be phenomenally expensive, can erode an estate to virtually nothing very quickly. But like all things, a bit of careful thought in advance can help relieve the nagging feeling of financial Armageddon waiting for us in later life. It's crucial that we don't let thoughts of one-day long-term care, which of course might never happen, we mustn't let that detract from our enjoyment of retirement in the present. And then finally, in episode 12, I've entitled it, Nothing New Under the Sun. That might change. Not biblical reference to Ecclesiastes there. I might change the title by the time we get there. But my perception is that as we've covered all the major life stages in the past 18 months of podcasts, there are some clear universal truths that are relevant no matter what your life stage is. And it'll be fun, I think, to round things off from essentially 18, 19 months of podcasts by identifying those things. It's really important that you understand that this season isn't just for retirees. So if you're 30 years old right now, you could be forgiven for thinking that many of the subjects I've just described are so far into the future that you just don't need to worry about them just yet. But I'm convinced that having a rounded, end-to-end understanding of our financial journey, and not just of the stage that we're currently in, will equip us really well for decision-making in the present. Plus, if you've got parents that are retired, then you might be able to help them with some of the challenges that we talk about. I had loads of emails from people nowhere near retirement who told me how much they enjoyed the last season, which was about the run into retirement. So definitely do listen, even if you're nowhere near retirement yourself. Really looking forward to getting into the new season. Hope you are too. So just a quick plug for Meaningful Academy. Now, obviously, as you know, Regular listeners will know that I've got an online learning site called Meaningful Academy, and the courses in there will be divided into 3 main phases. The first 2 phases, Financial Foundations and Build Wealth, are already live. Indeed, I mentioned at the top of the show the special launch pricing for Build Wealth, the second module, that ends this Friday at midnight, so don't miss out. Now, with both of those phases, we've done special founders launches where we've opened the doors to a group of founders who get a really deep discount to get into the academy while we're still building it. And the founders help shape the content by feeding back as new modules are added. And we're going to be doing a founders launch for phase 3, retirement planning. Obviously, that fits really well into this coming season of the podcast. So after this weekend, once the Build Wealth launch is done, there will be a sign-up form on meaningfulacademy.com to show your interest in the founders launch of the retirement planning phase. I'll nudge you about it next week when the form will be live, okay? So lots of good stuff to cover in this season. What will I do when I finish this season and we're done with the life stages? Well, I've got some ideas about that, but I'd be interested in your views as well. So send me an email, pete@meaningfulmoney.tv. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, here's a review this week from Mark F. in Basel in Switzerland. Mark F. says, been listening to Pete for 9 months. Absolutely love his style of communication. Straight talking, easy to understand with a dash of humor. Perfect. Keep it coming. Well, thank you, Mark F. I fully intend to keep it coming. Really glad that you like what you hear. And if you are liking what you're hearing or watching, if you're seeing me on YouTube, then leave me a review. meaningfulmoney.tv/iTunes if you're of an Apple persuasion. If you're on YouTube, then subscribe, hit the like button. You know what to do. But basically, wherever you are either hearing or watching this, if you can leave a review or show your appreciation some way, please do that, because it helps the algorithms just put Meaningful Money towards the top of the tables, which allows other people to hear about it and to subscribe. So thank you in advance for that. Okay, so next time I'm going to be talking about the transition into retirement. Looking forward to getting into the meat of the season now. So I hope, as I just trigger the music and bring it up, hope that I've whetted your appetite a little bit for what's to come in this season. Any questions or comments, go to meaningfulmoney.tv/RP1 for Retirement Planning Episode 1. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. Looking forward to getting into this. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you next week. Cheers.